He learned about the World Parliament of Religions in 1893, and when he came to the World Parliament of Religions, he became a religious superstar. Here he was, this man with immense intellectual powers, who knew the Western traditions, who had spent the years after his connection with Ramakrishna studying the Eastern traditions. He learned Sanskrit, he learned the main Indian texts. He studied under Hatha Yoga master, and he studied under other masters. He formed relationships throughout India with the small potentates of that kingdom. So he had financial backing too. He came to his courts of these Indian kings, and here he was so charismatic and intelligent and so compelling, and so they kind of took him under his wing and supported him. So when he wanted to go to America in 1893, the resources were there. These people enfranchised him to do that. When he arrived in America, here he was, this amazing guy in his yellow turban and his red robe. He was confident, stood around, he spoke in this really powerful voice. He didn't have any buttons to push around the West, and this was a real key part of his power. He wasn't pissed off at the West. He kind of accepted the West for what they were, and he was able to forgive his persecutors, the people who had controlled India, the people who had created all that poverty, the British Raj. He understood it all, but he didn't blame anybody. And because he didn't have any blame, he had more power. He had that freedom to give the gift of his blessing to all. So part of that and everything else that made that going for him, and this fact that he showed up on this stage of the World Parliament of Religions, which all the world was looking at, gave him instant celebrity. Paramahansa Ramakrishna was kind of the first acknowledged saint of the modern era, but Vivekananda followed quickly on his heels. He became an even more famous kind of super saint. Someone like we think of Gandhi, or we think of Martin Luther King, these powerful religious people who create social change. Jesus, of course, too. He became that kind of figure, and he rode the wave of popularity that was created by other kind of movements in culture at that time, not least among them modern style media. You had the push for universal education in the mid-1800s. You had the public school movement. You had all these people out in the world who could read. So you started to get the rising of magazines and newspapers. And magazines and newspapers need celebrity. That's the engine of their economic success. So they latched on to Vivekananda, and they put him on the cover of their magazines and their newspapers, and they made him into this incredible celebrity. He traveled around America, he did this lecture tour, he founded these things called Ramakrishna missions, which were places of dispersing of Indian thought, which were kind of the first institution like that in America. Kind of played on his relationship, his appearance with like Napoleon, because Napoleon was still kind of the iconic, charismatic figure for the age. You can see some of his posing was like Napoleon. He even put his hand inside his shirt.
Was that why you have them together?
Yeah, because he started taking the same pose in each one. You can't see it quite there, but he's got his hand in his shirt the way Napoleon was. So he would stand. He understood the camera. He understood how to present himself. He was firing on all cylinders. He understood how to convey the information from. He was savvy. He was smart. He was enlightened, but he didn't just drop this stuff on people without any kind of translation. He knew that he could offend people. So he made the tradition of India into a philosophical tradition for his listeners. He didn't talk about the sectarian part of it. He didn't talk about the weird part of it. He just talked about the philosophy, which people could understand and which made sense in terms of the current level of Western